A messy mix of weather hits much of Ontario.
We have to be ready for all this. It's Canada.
It's like not snow and it's not rain, it's just a gross mix.
Well, that didn't last long. After a brief snowfall today, Toronto and Hamilton are now under a rainfall warning. Plus,
it's emotional seeing spaces transform, especially when it's your community.
Changes for a big chunk of Jane and Finch might take years to materialize, but the community wants their voices heard right now. And
homicide investigators are working absolutely around the clock to hold the suspects responsible for this horrific crime.
A young woman killed outside a Mississauga nightclub was at the wrong place at the wrong time, say police, who are now appealing to the public for help. Well, what started as snow gave way to rain early this afternoon, at least in the downtown core. And as you can see right now, the rain hasn't stopped yet. So this is a live shot of the Queensway at Sherway Gardens, the city of Toronto, as well as Hamilton, both under rainfall warning tonight. And luckily, aside from some ponding on the roads, we haven't seen any reports of major flooding in the city. Good evening. I am Sébastien Saint-François. Well, if you ventured out today, you know what a mess it's been. Snow, sleet, and rain. And it's not even over yet. So Greg Ross, our colleague, has more on this first winter storm of 2024.
It was a snowy, blustery drive this morning around the GTA. A good day to make sure that windshield washer fluid was topped up.
We have to be ready for all this. It's Canada. We know.
On the highways, the conditions were less than ideal.
We got a van on its side here.
OPP Sergeant Kerry Schmidt captured this video of an accident on the 400 caused by the slick conditions. This auto shop was a little busier than usual today, with some scrambling to get snow tires on their cars.
I think being mild this winter, people have been putting it off, but we've seen a few phone calls today.
At the airport, maintenance crews were out in full force, keeping runways clear. But by early afternoon, they were able to park those snow removal machines with temperatures rising and the snow turning to rain.
It's this messy weather that, the atmosphere can't make up what its mind, what it wants to do. The winds will be strong, so this rain that it falls will be driven horizontally. So it's not going to be pleasant out there.
For some in the city, the cold rain and wind was even worse than the snow.
I wish it was snowing. It's like not snow and it's not rain, it's just a gross mix.
It's brutal today.
That rain is going to be around for a while.
10 to 15 today and maybe 10 to 15 tonight. So in total, maybe 20 to 30 millimeters of rain.
But it won't be too long before the rain turns back to snow once again. In fact, we're expecting some later this week.
We'll see kind of a snow event, but not huge amounts, but it'll certainly, the ground will be frozen by that time, and it'll be whiter and prettier, and it'll be the kind of thing that we're used to in the middle of January.
With this rain expected to last through the night and into the day tomorrow, the city has opened 3 of its warming shelters for those who need it. And city staff say that they are going to continue to monitor the weather this week, so they are ready for whatever comes our way. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
And here's a live look at the city skyline, sitting at 4 degrees right now, which is warmer than how we started the day. Victor Paulo is with us for a first look at the forecast. Victor.
What a day it's been with all of the significant weather we've had, from rainfall warnings as well as the snow and ice pellets that have already fallen. As we do see here, we had everything from snow to ice pellets and rain. And when it came to watches and warnings, still under a warning, expecting for it to lift right around 6 o'clock in the morning. And that's that rainfall warning that we're expecting in these green areas. Now, as when it comes to the rain that we're expecting to fall, we're expecting about 23 millimeters to fall between now and about 3 p.m. on Thursday. Now, here's that system as it passes through. Earlier in the day, you saw it was a lot of that snow, and in its wake was some more rain. And by the time we get to about 5 o'clock on Wednesday, we're going to get a bit of a break before some more snow is coming our way on Thursday. Quick look at our 3-day forecast. Rain and snow coming on Wednesday, some more snow on Thursday, and finally a break on Friday. Make sure to stay tuned to see the rest of your 3 and 7-day forecast and stay dry.
Let's stay dry indeed. Now to another story where residents of Jane and Finch are on edge as a community landmark is set to undergo a long-term redevelopment that could change their neighborhood. The city held an engagement meeting tonight to hear what people think about the decades-long plan, and Lane Harrison has the story.
It feels like home. This place is not like any other mall.
Unlike other shopping centers, Jane Finch Mall is lined with small businesses, many representing the faces of the community surrounding it.
When I thought about opening this place, I wanted to bring my culture to my people, especially the young generation, you know, for them to embrace their roots.
But Fatima Bangura is worrying every day about what will soon sprout up. The mall is undergoing a massive redevelopment that will surround it with high-rise towers, some as tall as 50 stories. The project is poised to take advantage of the new Finch LRT, which is expected to open this year. The mall won't be touched for about a decade, but tonight residents had a chance to have their say on the plan. Many showed up to the community meeting, like realtor Eduardo Ramon, who had his first job at the mall.
It's emotional seeing spaces transform, especially when it's your community. However, I think it's important that we all, keep an open mind.
Residents came with concerns about affordability and gentrification.
I mean, it's 30 years from now when you think about it, but I don't know if it's for myself or for the next generation.
We're just going to increase the density of probably one of the most dense neighborhoods already in the city. And I don't think we're really increasing the services.
While there is hesitancy, hope exists that the new housing will be affordable and keep people planted in the area. The firm behind the project says numbers aren't finalized, but they'd like half the units to be affordable and go to community members.
There's not a lot of detail about the affordable housing because this project's going to take 20 years. A lot of affordable housing delivery depends on who's in provincial government and who's in federal government and what kinds of monies flow to a development at the time they're ready to be shovels in the ground.
Looking down the project's decade-long timeline, Bangura wants the mall's magic to be preserved.
Whatever changes come ahead, right now we'll just sit and wait. But I really hope our culture gets to stay here.
Lane Harrison, CBC News, Toronto.
To Mississauga now, where Peel police are looking for suspects involved in a nightclub shooting in the early morning hours of December 31st. A 19-year-old woman was shot and killed while waiting outside with friends at Eglinton Avenue East and Dixie Road. Tyler Cheese has the latest.
Jungle Nightclub. It's here on December 31st that police say a 19-year-old woman was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Renelia was in attendance at this club waiting outside in the line to enter the premise with her friends when her life was tragically taken by gunfire. Renelia was doing nothing more that night than being with her friends, intending to enjoy the evening when her life was tragically taken away.
The North York teen was pronounced dead at the scene. Police say she was not the intended target.
She was a talented athlete and a friend to many. And just like many young people and young adults, she had dreams and goals and aspirations which she wanted to accomplish.
A few days ago, club owners announced that they'd be shutting down operations due to the shooting, but it's not the first time a nightclub has had to close in this location. Prior to this, it was known as Her, and it was also the site of a number of shootings over the last couple of years.
For very similar reasons where there were increased incidents of violence that plagued not only the premise but the local area. We worked very hard with the City of Mississauga and our stakeholders to get the premise shut down.
While Her was eventually closed, the club reopened under a new name just a few months later. Tommy Kokut owns a small grocery store in the same plaza and says the incidents have impacted his operations.
Next day morning, we lost our business.
He's been in the plaza for 22 years and wants to see police do more to address the growing violence in the area.
Law enforcement should get involved more into it and make sure that nothing happened into the community.
Police say their investigation is ongoing and is asking for the public's help. They've released this image of an old gray SUV that was spotted leaving the scene.
Homicide investigators are working absolutely around the clock to hold the suspects responsible for this horrific crime.
Anyone with information is urged to contact police. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Mississauga.
A man has been arrested accused of sexually assaulting a 16-year-old girl while holding her captive in an apartment near Dundas and Jarvis last week. Police say 39-year-old Mohamed El Kurdi sexually assaulted the girl between January 3rd and 7th and refused to let her leave. He has been charged with 6 offenses, including sexual assault and forcible confinement. Investigators believe there may be more victims. Anyone with information is asked to contact police. A man is being treated for serious injuries after a fire in Riverdale this morning. Firefighters were called to a low-rise residential building on Broadview near Dundas around 8:30 a.m. The fire broke out on the third story of the building but was quickly extinguished. A man in his 50s was transported to hospital. Crews have blocked off more parts of Ontario Place as the controversial development there enters a new phase. Queen's Park reporter Lorenda Redekop has more on what's happening and the reaction.
The bridge between Ontario Place and the exhibition is now a no-go zone. Construction at Ontario Place is set to ramp up. This is the unofficial-looking notice people were met with yesterday.
It was a bit of a rude awakening on a Monday morning. There was no sort of notice that the West Island was going to be closed off. It just was here one day, gone the next.
Alex Reinhardt says he walks there every day and would have liked some advance notice.
It's that usual lack of care that we're seeing from this government.
The group Ontario Place for All opposes the development. For members, it's a visual symbol of what's likely coming. The large spa and water park one step closer, though the group is attempting to stop development on the West Island, pushing for an injunction, calling for a full environmental assessment there first. The group says today, lawyers from both sides were set to meet with a judge for the first time.
To us, this is not over, not by a long shot. We are going to fight for this place with everything we've got.
The trees on the West Island, where the spa is going to be built, are set to be chopped down at some point this year. I asked the government for a more exact timeline on the tree removals, but a spokesperson would only say it'll be communicated as the project progresses. Trillium Park and the Budweiser stage remain open. The government says the coming changes will attract 6 million people a year to Ontario Place. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
The Leafs hosting the San Jose Sharks at Scotiabank Arena tonight, and it's the first time we're seeing William Nylander in action after he signed an 8-year, $92 million contract extension with the team.
Nylander pulls it back for Riley, walks right in, shoots, scores!
Nylander with an assist on that opening goal from Morgan Riley. He recorded another just a few minutes later on this slap shot from Austin Matthews, and the third as well. So on this Marner wrist shot. The Buds win this one easily. Welcome back. Toronto's Infrastructure Committee passed a motion today that gives the city the ability to administer fines from red light and speed cameras.
Report that was before us today was about creation of an administrative penalty system so that tickets from speed cameras and red light cameras could be processed in a faster, more efficient way, much like they are for parking tickets.
The proposal, if it gets adopted, would see the city taking over the processing of fees from the provincial courts and implement their own administrative penalty system. With the motion passed, the whole thing now goes to City Council for final approval next week. We told you yesterday about a ransomware incident with the Toronto Zoo. It is the latest local institution in our city to be cyber attacked. We spoke to an expert who says cybersecurity in public institutions needs to be stepped up.
Our public institutions are working hard to try to close those gaps. And it's a combination of, more and better security software, but also better training for people as well, right? Most of these ransomware attacks start with somebody getting an email saying, pay this invoice, and they click on a link and it installs the virus on their computer, and then it spreads across the entire network.
And the Toronto Zoo is working with the Toronto Police cybersecurity team to get a handle on the hacking. They say animal welfare has not been impacted. After a year of extreme weather events, a report by Europe's Climate Change Service now confirms it. 2023 was officially the planet's hottest year on record. Temperatures were above average for 11 months, and this past September was the warmest September ever. Senior science reporter Nicole Mortillaro has more.
After a year of record-breaking wildfires across the country, the warmest summer globally, and heat waves and droughts, it may not come as a surprise that 2023 was the hottest year on record. How hot? Very hot. According to the European Union's Copernicus Climate Change Service, 2023 was 1.48 degrees Celsius warmer than the pre-industrial average. blowing away the previous record of 1.25 degrees Celsius set in 2016.
I think it's fair to say it surprised all climate scientists. The sheer number of records that were broken and how they were broken. They were broken by very large amounts.
For the first time on record, every day of the year was 1 degree Celsius above the pre-industrial average, and half of those were more than 1.5 degrees Celsius above. Climate scientists say there were contributing factors as to why there was such a rapid rise. First and foremost, the continued use of fossil fuels, pumping CO2 into our atmosphere, and record-breaking ocean temperatures. 2023 also saw an El Niño, a natural and cyclical Pacific Ocean phenomenon, which also helped to bump temperatures slightly upward. But typically, those effects are felt in the subsequent year, which means 2024 could end up being warmer than 2023.
And the reality is, when we look back at 2023 in 5 or 10 years' time, it's likely to be one of the coolest years of that period. So the reality is, it doesn't matter if it's just below or just above 1.5 degrees. What matters is that we get that political action and rapid climate action to get to net zero as quickly as possible.
Nicole Mortellero, CBC News, Toronto.
And speaking of weather, you're looking at a live shot of Windsor as we head to break. 4 degrees out there with a chance of showers throughout the overnight. Victor will be back with our long-range forecast when we come back. Stay with us. And time for a final check tonight on your forecast with Victor Paulo. A look at what's in store for the rest of the week. Victor.
Taking a look at the map of North America here, you will see that a lot of that blue, which was escaping southeastern Ontario, has finally come to our doors, as that explains a lot of the significant weather which we've received. Everything from ice pellets, everything from snow, as well as rain, as we did have a rainfall warning. Now, speaking of temperatures and what we're going to be expecting to happen in Toronto when it comes to overnight tonight, well, it's going to be 2 degrees, feeling like -4, and it's going to be a mix of scattered showers as well as scattered flurries. But tomorrow morning, my little Emmy and your little ones are getting ready for school. What's the weather going to be? Well, it's going to be a mix of snow and rain. It's going to be 2 degrees, feeling like -4. So here's what we're expecting when it comes to the rainfall amounts between now and about Thursday. About 23 millimeters should be falling here in the GTA. And once that's all said and done, the good news is we'll be getting a break from that precipitation once we get to Friday. Now, here's what we're looking at and what had already passed. A lot of that snow had passed by Toronto earlier in the days. It switched to ice pellets. And after all of that, we had that significant rain, which will last till about Wednesday. Now, when Wednesday hits, we're going to get a bit of a break when it comes towards your overnight into Thursday morning. But this is what's coming our way on Thursday. Now, here's what it looks like afternoon for Wednesday. But as we do get closer to Thursday, here's that other system working its way in. And we're expecting some snow to fall on Thursday, but not as much as it was today, but definitely enough that it's going to start right around 9 o'clock in the morning, and it's going to be all said and done closer to supper hour. Now, looking at our 3-day forecast and our 7-day, you will see there's a mix of rain and snow expected on Wednesday. It will be a snowy Thursday, but finally a break on Friday with a little bit of sun and shine. And looking at the rest of our 7-day forecast, some snow on Saturday, but look at those chilly temperatures. -13 is what it's going to feel like on Sunday. Monday's going to feel like -14, and it will feel like -18 once we reach Tuesday. So stay dry and stay warm, Toronto, and have a great night.
NASA's current program of missions to the moon is being delayed. Numerous technical problems and concerns for astronaut safety are holding the project back. While Artemis 2, that's the mission, was slated for November of this year, it's now being pushed to September of 2025. Artemis 2 will send 4 astronauts, including Canadian Jeremy Hansen, on a trip around the moon. Now, in turn, Artemis 3, which would have landed humans on the moon in 2025, will now be delayed until the fall of 2026. The last people to walk on the moon were members of the Apollo 17 crew in 1972. And finally tonight, you'd be forgiven to think that water or Gatorade and other assorted energy drinks are still the mainstays of hockey players' hydration. But what about mustard or pickle juice? Because for a pair of OHL players, that's exactly what they say gets them to peak performance. CBC Windsor's Jason Vio explains the surprising game time tradition.
I think any normal fan or person would just kind of be like, this guy's crazy, just putting mustard in his mouth.
For defenseman Roberto Mancini, his passion for mustard started 4 years ago while playing in the Ontario Hockey League. At first, he was discreet about it, just using the packets you'd find at the arena concession stand. Now, the self-proclaimed mustard guy has no shame in getting it right from the big bottle in full view of fans.
It looks kind of like you're enjoying it a bit. Yeah, I actually wasn't the biggest mustard fan, and then I kind of started falling in love with it a couple years ago, and now I just kind of went with it.
It's even become a superstition, and you'll notice Mancini taking a swig of mustard at specific times during the game.
No, it's definitely not the best tasting thing ever, but you kind of get used to it. I just find it helps my legs. My legs will feel a little bit heavy after the first period, just kind of getting into the game, and I'll kind of just relieve all the tension and the heaviness.
And if you pay close attention to the bench, you may also notice a jar of pickles sitting around. Forward Oliver Peer says the salty and vinegary condiment is the only thing that relieves his muscle cramps.
I was willing to try anything. I mean, I drank in soy sauce, mustard, pickle juice now. The soy sauce didn't sit well in my stomach. Had some problems late night.
It works so well, he goes through 2 jars of Bick's tangy dill-sliced pickles per game. He sips every last drop, but the pickles are now a team tradition.
I go around the room handing out pickles. Guys ask me for pickles and give them a couple pickles. So, it's something for me and the team. So.
As for why these strange habits relieve muscle cramps, it's a bit of a mystery for the team's physiotherapist.
A couple theories are it's the high sodium content in the pickle juice. Electrolytes, all that being kind of replenished in the muscles, which kind of staves off the cramping.
The mustard pickle bromance was thought to be over after Mancini was traded to the Flint Firebirds on Monday. However, Tuesday morning, Pierre has also been swapped to the same team, reuniting the 2 players with quirky habits. Jason Vio, CBC News, Windsor.
Mustard and pickle juice. Maybe that's a reason why they're called the Spitfires after all. Well, that's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. Good night.